Why you can't regret anything, even the messy parts. Hi, I'm Laura, your host, and welcome to the Self-Concept Bestie podcast. When you think about regret, do you live your life running on what ifs, what I should have done differently? What could I have done to prevent that outcome? But do you ever sit and realise that you'll never know the answer to that? Because if you hadn't made that decision that you regret, you wouldn't be sitting here today. You wouldn't be the person you are today. So instead of, I wish I hadn't, we need to explore how every decision was your best possible choice given your awareness at that time, and how each regret that you've got has led you to where you are and expanded your character, it's expanded your beliefs, it's expanded your awareness of the situations that you now come into. When you go back and you're trying to erase what has happened, when you're dwelling so much on that, that's where your brain, it just starts to shut down. It's that depression, isn't it? It's that dullness, and it's just ruminating, constantly going round in circles. What if this was different? What could we do differently? What I should have done this. But what if we actually accept what we've done? What if we accept all the choices that we have made up until this point? And instead of shaming what we've done and sitting in that sadness, that agitation, that regret, we start integrating it into who we are, and we forgive that part of ourselves. Because that person who made that decision, the one that you regret, the decision you regret making, they made that choice, that decision, with all of the knowledge that they knew they had at that time. So if you look at yourself now, you know different. You know that you would make a different decision going forward. Regret triggers rumination in your brain. It just goes over it and over it and over it, and it's a spiral, it's a loop. But we need to be able to break that loop. We need to be able to look at that past scenario, situation, regret, and take some radical acceptance towards it. Because see, when you can accept what has happened, you can start to actually heal that part, and you can start to trust yourself again. When you can accept the choices and the decisions you've made, because I'm going to be real with you here, we can't go back and change them. That decision was made. Unless somebody's got a time machine that they're not telling me about, and if you do, please hit me up. But we cannot go back and change that decision. We cannot go back and change that circumstance. We cannot go back and change that regret. We can change the story of it in our brain. We can revise it. We can actually tell a different story towards it and accept it for what it is. So when we move forward, we don't make the same mistake again that we are going to regret. Look at that person back then when they made that decision. What kind of place were they in? What were they struggling with? And when you're regretting and you're ruminating on that, you're shaming that part of you. But that girl, that boy, back then, they didn't know any better than that. But you right now is shaming you, like you should have done better, you should have been better, you should have done differently. But all it's doing is putting yourself down. speaking to yourself with hatred and with shame. So what if we spoke to them as with love and with acceptance, and we decided it's done, that is done, we cannot change that, but I can change how I move forward. Every moment in our lives is divinely orchestrated for our growth, for us to grow into who we are meant to be. Even the ones that have broke our heart, even the ones that have broke us fully, even the ones that have dragged us to the depths of despair. Because when you're at that bottom, that's when you've got a choice to make. Do I turn this pain and push it into power? Do I let it define me? Am I going to sit here and make this regret and situation define who I am? Or do I choose to rise anyway and heal that part of me so I don't make the same mistakes again? Do you decide to break that loop? For anyone listening who is on a spiritual journey and into manifestation, now, side note for me, we manifest everything in our lives. Everything is a creation of our beliefs, our limiting beliefs. But that's a different podcast. But we can't create from shame. We can't create a future, a life that we desire when it is filled with shame. When we put all our awareness on what we should and shouldn't have done, and we keep shaming that part of ourselves that we're not good enough, we should have done better. Guess what life's going to show us? It's going to keep showing us the same things over and over and over again. So then we've got that choice to make. Do we accept that? We turn that pain into power, and we decide who we are right now in this moment, and we move forward. When you think about depression is ruminating on the past, that chemical imbalance in your brain, that loop that keeps on running constantly. But do we ever get to the bottom of why it's there? What wound was that triggering? What did that tell us about ourselves? What story did we create about ourselves? What meaning did we give it that is keeping us there? We are feeding into that by constantly going over and over. I wish I could change this. I wish things could be different. But they're not. All we have is the present moment. We don't have anything else. We have right now. And right now, we have right now. As the seconds go on, we have right now. We have the present moment, that is it, to make the conscious choices that we want to make going forward. We can't change that, but we can change our conscious decisions in the present moment. So while ruminating on all of this past regret, all you're doing is ruining your current present moment. I want to share a personal story with you about when I've had to deal with regret. And I suppose this was the biggest learning curve for me. And one of the reasons I can probably sit here and wholeheartedly, with every ounce of my being, tell you that we can't regret anything, because I've lived it. So back in 2009, my dad was an alcoholic. Not just in 2009, years prior to that. And we tried to get him better. I remember saying to him, you'll never walk me down the aisle. You'll never get to see your grandkids grow up. Begging him to choose us. Begging him to choose us over the alcohol. Now, I was 19 at the time. I didn't know much about addiction. But when you're in addiction, and for anybody who knows somebody that's suffering with addiction, or if you yourself are, until you can accept you have an addiction, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. There's a great saying that I live by, is that you can take a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. We done everything that we could, but he didn't want to help himself. So, sadly, he passed away. But where my regret comes into this is 3 weeks before he died. I can picture it now like it was yesterday. I went up to his house to see him, and he was going over to the local supermarket. And I said, look, I'll give you a lift over. Got in the car, and I said to him, what are you going in for? I said, we're really needing, hopefully you're not going in for drink, etc. The conversation went on. So I ended up having a heated argument in the car because, yes, he was going over to get his litre of vodka so he could go home and drink it. And he got out my car, slammed the door, and that was the last time I ever spoke to him. I remember a week and a half later he phoned me and he left a voicemail on my phone. And I was so angry at him for not, at that time, believed he didn't love us enough to choose us over the drink. I know that is not the case. I know that now. But I was so angry at the time, and when I got that voice message, it was just so normal, as if that argument had never happened. And I remember thinking, no, I'm not phoning you back. I'm so angry. Why can't he see it like we just want him to get better? And then we got a call, 7 o'clock in the morning, to get to the hospital. And unfortunately, when I got there, he was gone. So the year after that, I sunk deep into depression. Deep into depression. Was so suicidal at one point, was on tablets, and eventually managed to come off all the tablets, etc. Went to therapy. And I've always said this, therapy helped build my awareness, but there was something that was just always in my mind. It was my mental strength that managed to get me through it. That regret I sat with for not speaking to him, that ate me up for a solid 2 years. And then I realised he couldn't do any more than what he was doing because he couldn't accept that he had a problem. It wasn't because he didn't love us. It wasn't because he was choosing alcohol over us. It was because he didn't know any better. And when you're in addiction, it doesn't matter how much help and love you've got around you until you realise that you need to change. You won't. So I had to accept that. I had to accept that that girl who decided not to speak to her dad for 3 weeks before he died, who had that argument, she made a choice. That Laura made a choice. With the best knowledge, the best awareness that she had at that point, she thought she was doing the right thing. She thought that if he could see how much it was hurting, that it would make him see the light, see sense. She didn't know any different. So how can I shame her for making that decision? Because she only done what she knew was best at that time. She can't go back and change it. It's done. He's gone. But I'm still here. I'm still living. And I get to decide how I live going forward. Do I fill my life filled with that regret? Or do I decide to make sure that never happens again? no matter how angry I am, how annoyed I am. So healing that part of me, accepting that Laura could only do what she knew was right, and we couldn't. I can't go back and change that. It is done, and I had to accept that. I had to accept that it wasn't him in the end. It was addiction, and there's nothing we were going to be able to do to change that. This was always meant to be the outcome. This was always meant to be my life's trajectory. So now, when people ask me, I say something, and I'm going to say it right now, and it can shock a lot of people. But my dad dying was the best and worst day of my life. And I know that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? How can I sit here and say that it was the best day? Because yes, it was the worst day as well. But something in me changed that day. Something in me gave me that strength to push forward, to become the person I always knew that I was meant to be. And that strength has carried me through the whole other end of my life. And I suppose the strength that I've got from him, he gifted me that. He gifted me that strength by the situation of him being an alcoholic, of us having to experience that, of me experiencing and passing. He's actually gave me that strength. He's gave me a gift. Why am I going to waste that? Why am I going to sit there and ruminate and ruin my life, lying in my bed, depressed, lonely, because I can't get out my own head, when actually it was a gift that he has given me? Would I do anything to have him back? 100%. But I can't. So I need to accept it. And that gift that he's given me of strength, of courage, to know and trust myself and forgive the parts of me, I don't take that lightly. And it's what fuels me now in all aspects of my life. If that hadn't happened, would I be sitting here today recording this podcast right now? Would I be sitting here posting content to help people on a self-concept journey to realise how amazing they are and be able to change that mindset? Would I have had as much strength as what I've got as if that situation had not happened? So I get to decide to change the narrative on what that meant for me, what story that was going to define about me. And I decide that he's gave me a gift. He gave me strength that no one else maybe really wants. You don't want to get strength from that, do you? People say, yeah, you're so strong. You have earned my strength. But I'm not going to let it go to waste now. I am not going to dwell on that. I'm not going to ruminate, and I am not going to let that loop keep on going. I decided to break it with the strength, the gifts that he gave me in that moment. So I want you to look at things just now that you are possibly regretting, and look at where you are, and maybe look at why that maybe had to happen. It might not even be clear just now, because back when 19-year-old Laura, she didn't see that in, how many years would that be? My quick maths is not on point just now. 16 years ago. 16 years ago, that Laura did not believe that she would be here recording a podcast for people all over the world to listen to be speaking about the strength and the courage and the mindset that has got her to this point. Do you think when I go back and tell 19-year-old Laura that she would believe that? No. But that bridge of events had to happen to get me here today, to be the person I am today, for you to sit here and listen to me today. When you accept what has happened, you forgive the you that made the best decision that she or he had at that time. And you come into the present and we move forward. I want to leave you with this. When we stop wishing we'd done it differently, we free ourselves to receive what those moments were preparing us for. Wholeness isn't about perfection. It's about loving every version of who we've been. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, today is already an amazing day.